Hi there, and welcome to the talk, Who Do They Think We Are? Political Parties, Political Profiling and the Law. My name is Pascal Crowe. I'm the Data and Democracy Project Officer at Open Rights Group. So first of all, a little bit about Open Rights Group. We are a UK-based digital rights NGO. We seek to promote and protect digital rights such as freedom of expression and online privacy. We're a grassroots movement. We have over 20,000 supporters across the UK, and the report on which these slides are based is the main output of the Data and Democracy Project, which has been running for the past 18 months, and that's available online, and I'll provide a link to the report at the end of the slides as well. So first of all, what was this research about? Well, we were kind of responding to two main areas of concern. Firstly, that although companies such as Facebook have really been scrutinised in how they use their personal data, political parties themselves, the people who pay for the kind of Cambridge Analytica-style targeted ads, haven't seen the same level of scrutiny. But also we wanted to kind of interrogate how data-driven political campaigning was working on the ground and in the ground war, not just in terms of colourful ads, but for all forms of engagement, from door knocking to kind of general campaign spend, and kind of really highlight the fact that targeting is a process rather than just the ads you see on Facebook. So in order to do that, we developed a tool that helped voters gain copies of the data that political parties hold on them, which we knew consisted of the electoral register data and also some other forms of commercial data, which we weren't really sure. And this tool allowed voters to use their right of subject access, which is a right under EU and UK data protection law, to get a copy of the data that political parties had been holding on them. Some of those people who got the results back sent their data to us for analysis, and we looked through that. And finally, we ran a follow-up poll of participants to get a sense of whether they thought the data was accurate and how they felt about being profiled in that way. So we tried to kind of mix quant and qual analysis a little bit. Obviously, there were some pretty severe limitations on this. It was more of a case study. It had a very small sample size, very small number of participants wanted to share their data with us, and there was a limited number of parties that responded properly. So what did we find when we analysed the profiles we got back? Well, one thing that we found was that roughly the degree of sophistication in profiling by political parties correlated to the size of membership. So in the UK, the largest political party by membership currently is Labour. Then the next biggest party by membership is the Conservative and Unionist Party. And then it's kind of a toss-up between the SNP and the Lib Dems. But I believe at the time of the research, the Lib Dems were definitively the third biggest party. That may now have changed. So we found that Labour contained over 80 pages of data for a person, although it should be caveated, we got very few responses back from Labour, only two. They were very unwilling to give us the data, but they had 80 pages worth of propensity scores, kind of inferences about a person, etc., etc. Then the Conservative ones was a bit less sophisticated, trying to make guesses about what newspaper a person might read. And then the Lib Dems were kind of had a lot of empty boxes and were kind of obviously trying to have a more sophisticated targeting operation than they did, and a more sophisticated profiling operation. It should be said that also that Experian provided data to all these three parties about individuals. Normally that was just kind of modelled demographic data, inferences about a person's socioeconomic background based on where they lived, and so on and so forth, the size of their mortgage. And finally, the poll we conducted of people who had received their results revealed the scale of unhappiness with these practices. And just to give you an example of some of the responses that we got: I feel spied upon, I felt violated and treated with contempt, I felt angry that parties were profiling me and others to this extent, made me feel anxious and powerless. So that gives you a sense of the strength of feeling that we encountered in opposition to these practices. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we definitively didn't find in our research. So what we didn't find was any hard evidence of law breaking by political parties in the way that they profiled individuals. In fact, they were more just cleverly exploiting legal ambiguity over the extent to which they can process personal data without consent in the UK. Largely that relied upon a piece of data protection law that is known as the democratic exemption, which allows political parties to process sensitive information about individuals without consent under certain conditions. That's a big oversimplification of the law, but essentially there's quite a big discrepancy between how political parties interpret that law and how the regulator interprets that part of law. Secondly, what we didn't find was that UK political parties knew voters better than they knew themselves, which I think is a kind of common conceit in the study of data-driven political campaigning, or certainly in the way it's reported in the press commonly. Only 60% of respondents felt that profiling, 60% of respondents felt that profiling was inaccurate, and only 3% felt that it was in any way kind of completely accurate, which is not kind of what you'd expect given all the kind of hype around, targeted ads. And finally, it was impossible for us to find out how different types of data are combined and what they were used for. For example, we didn't know if the demographic data was being used for messaging or just door knocking or perhaps fundraising. That wasn't really clear for us. And then finally, just to add a bit of international context and relevance, I thought I'd just highlight why this is relevant for the upcoming US elections. There's lots of reasons. Firstly, for us, this was kind of predominantly a problem with the law, but even so, UK data protection law does prevent some of the worst excesses of the type that we've seen in the US, such as kind of data-driven racist voter suppression of the kind that's recently come to light. Secondly, obviously in the States, with the Citizens United decision and a kind of a minimal approach to data protection, that kind of allows for the worst of all possible worlds for the targeting of voters, kind of the worst excesses of it. And finally, although independent fact checkers are an important part of fixing truth and trust online, particularly as it relates to elections, without looking at data protection and privacy, the analysis will always be incomplete because we need to see how data is driving messaging, and transparency improves trust. And then finally, any questions? Our report is available at the below link. The tool that we use to get copies of data of people's political profiles is below, and my email is also on there as well. Thank you very much.